Recording in progress.
Yuk, sekali lagi yuk. Dari video ke atas.
Iya, iya, benar-benar. Iya, iya, iya.
No.
Good morning, everyone. It is a bit echoing, yeah. Okay. Maybe someone could turn off his or her Zoom. There we go. Thank you. Again, good morning. In this pleasant morning, we have the privilege to host this event, panel discussion on cultural heritage spaces, approaches to innovative education for sustainable of heritage. In this session, we will have the remaining 3 hours, more or less. And for this event, we will have Professor Bakti Setiawan as the host, as well as a list of esteemed panelists. Professor Ulrich Helbig, sorry if I couldn't pronounce your name correctly. Professor Renate Bornberg, Dr. Heronisa, and Dr. Laranista Adisakti, and also another one who is joining with us online, Professor Kyoko Kanki from Kyoto University. Without further ado, I would also like to acknowledge the attendance presence of Bu Wiratni Budiharjo as the coordinator of the Center of Excellence in Sustainable Environment, and also our Vice Dean, Dr. Ali Awaludin. To provide you with a bit of insight of what we are going to cover this morning, we also have students that will present their work as a collaboration with the faculty. First, let's start this event by inviting Dr. Ali Awaludin as the Vice Dean of our faculty to give a little bit of welcome remarks. Dr. Ali Awaludin, floor and time is yours.
Yes, I would like to say good morning to everyone, and also cloudy morning because I think it's not so warm as previously, but I hope everyone enjoying staying here, also welcoming to our Faculty Engineering. I think Yogyakarta is a special one because we are living in the many heritage spots, like Prambanan, and also we have Kraton and other things. So here, the education, modern, also traditional come together. So a lot of people from different city, different country come to Indonesia, especially to Yogyakarta to learn about this one. My background is civil engineer. So sometimes I work with heritage, sometimes become a headache a lot for me because heritage always conserve the traditional one, while as a civil engineer building the new one. So this is thing that we have to collaborate, and we have also to share the knowledge. I think a lot of things that can share to from Indonesian side as well, from the German, also from Japanese side. So also welcome to also to people from Japan, also to all of us, to all people who are joining through the Zoom line. So I think, I hope these 3 hours of meeting will become fruitful, and people can sharing the idea, the innovation that they develop in their own country also become inspiration to other countries. So this is our welcome remarks. And this building is quite new. This building is just, I think we initiated this building a few years ago, but we just started using this one probably like July or August last year. So it's still new. I hope you can enjoy staying here and also sharing about your idea about how we can conserve our traditional heritage in Yogyakarta. I think Ibu Sita is just the focal point for this issue. I hope Ibu can also learn, also can share the knowledge to all of us. That's all my welcome remarks, and I'm sorry I'm not in formal clothes because the cloth is just the formal in the Friday here in UGM. The color is the color of UGM. So we have to use this color every Friday morning. So thank you. I mean, sorry for doing one, but I think, hope you enjoy staying here and also fruitful discussion among of you. Thank you so much and good luck for the discussion. Thank you, Pak.
Thank you, Dr. Ali Awaludin. Thank you very much. You know what? I don't have the exact same cloth though, so maybe I should also ask one, yeah, for the letter. I also would like to acknowledge once again, the attendees that have allocated their time to join with us online. So maybe we can pop up the Zoom panel just to get a sense who had already joined us this morning. So that's right, yeah. Professor Kyodo Kanki, I hope you could hear us. Thank you. Right. And also a number of attendees that came from government, came from the academics, and also a substantial number of other stakeholders. So I assume the attendees could also hear our voice here. And with that, our next small session is, before we actually moving to the main discussion, is to gather together in front of the stage and to take a picture.
With the one in the...
Exactly, yeah, with the one on Zoom joining with us.
So all participants here?
Yes, here. Photo time.
Yes.
Monggo, Ibu dan Bapak.
It is quite a historic event in a new building.
Tetapi kok banyak putrinya ya daripada laki-laki. Many women in compare with the men here.
Gendered issue.
Sebagai Pak Bobi titanya sendiri ya ampun. Ini sama Pak.
The one on the in the Zoom, we will invite you also to turn on your camera so that you could appear with us, albeit virtually.
Will be very interesting to discuss and explore the role of gender in construction.
Excuse me, maybe.
There's something wrong.
Wetlands, yeah. Fantastic, thank you. Okay, please have a seat again. Although I would like to ask the panelists to actually standing up and come to the stage and to start our panel discussion. So everyone will be at the front, yes.
Ulrich, Mbak Nisa, can I call you Nisa, right? I always misspell your name, not Renata, Renata, right? Baik Ibu dan Bapak-Bapak, very good morning and to you all, those who are joining offline here in this nice building, but unfortunately because of the cloudy morning we cannot see Merapi mountain on the north side of the area, and also those who are joining online. I saw quite many joining online, but we will have a very nice presentation and discussion, and from the Pusita, I know that there will be at least 7 presenters, right? Yeah. 5 in the beginning, and then the second, it will be continue, right, Pusita? I mean, presenters from the student. But this morning, we will start with 5 Kanki, 5 presenter. Start with Pusita first, and then second, Kanki, I guess, yeah. Kanki, how are you doing, Kanki? How's the weather in Kyoto?
It's just a spring, so nice weather
okay.
in this moment. Yeah.
Yeah, nice to meet you for after a long time. Not, yeah. So the sequence will be Pusita, Kanki, and Uri, right? And Renata, lalu Mbak Nisa, and then 2 super student presentation, yeah, from Kacamada and from TU Win. So without further ado, Pusita, we have quite plenty of time, 3 hours, yeah, from now. So, but I don't know if you can have at least 15 to 20 minutes presentation, and then and we will have a long discussion after 5 or after 7 presenters, yeah, Bu. We will see. After 7 presenters, yeah, we will have discussion. So be patient. I mean, we have to hear first the presenter, 7 presenter, then we will have still time to discuss. Pusita, please.
Thank you.
Tepuk tangan dulu, tepuk tangan biar semangat ya.
Thank you, Pak Bobby. Yeah, this is a very pleasure time for us that we can be together since many years, especially also since the pandemic that happened for all of us. And with TU Win, we have already collaborations since 2005. So it's a long time ago. Almost. And then with Kyoto University, actually it started in 1990. So even though that's time also with Kanki Sensei, that we were classmates and we were graduated together in 1998. And after that we have a collaboration that I would like to present also today. And yes, my presentations will be on the issue of the new approach. That is something that we would like also to think in the future on the heritage conservation educations. So I would like to present part of this is from our International Borobudur Field School that with Kanki Sensei we organized in 2003, and then 2 online international summer course on Jogja World Batik City in 2021. Yes, this is in between of the pandemic. And we invite also at that moment Uli Sensei, Renata Sensei, also in Pak Bobby, also to be a presenter on those summer course. There's something difference in between before and after the pandemic. Okay, next, we will see first about what is the UNESCO World Heritage Conventions. This is the most significant feature in 1902 World Heritage Conventions that is linked together. A single document that concepts the nature conservation, so the conservation not mainly about the culture heritage, but also the naturals. And the convention also recognized the way in which people, so the participation, the interactions, people with the nature, and the fundamental needs to preserve and balance the in-between of two. And the very interesting is we have to do with the 5C: credibility, conservation, capacity building. Yes, we are in the education, so capacity building will be also focused in this. But important is communication with many collaborators as well as the communities. So 5C. So we can check what is our educations already on those link or not. And Indonesia, 2003, in Yogyakarta, in this department, we started to organize what is called the Indonesian Heritage Year, and we published the first charter that we have in Indonesia. It's called the Indonesian Heritage Conservation Charters. In this heritage, we mentioned that our heritage is legacy of nature, culture, and saujana. Saujana is a new terminology at that moment that we try to utilize. Saujana is not new actually for the technology. It's in our dictionary. It's called as far as you can see. But we make a transformation, or we utilize the saujana to translate the cultural landscape. So that's why since then we focus on those issue of the saujana, so the cultural landscape. Yes, and the next, we already organized 3 times the Indonesian Heritage Year. First of all, in 2003, is celebrating diversity of heritage. So the heritage is actually not just the cultural heritage, but it's many nature and as well as the saujana. And then in 2013, we moved to Heritage for Social Welfare. And this year, our motto on the Indonesian Heritage Year is Heritage Economic for SDGs. So it's already something innovation. We try to make a progress on what is the issue of the heritage is. Next. One of our roadmap in the heritage education is what we use, we call it field school or summer course. So like I mentioned before, we organized the International Borobudur Field School that we organized with Kanki Sensei. At that moment, she was in Wakayama University, and then after that, she moved to Kyoto University. We focus on the cultural landscape. So we try to see the Borobudur as not just the temple, but also the area, even the river, the village, the ancient lakes, and then the villages. And we produced the book together. After 10 years, we organized the Borobudur Field School with this book, Borobudur as Cultural Landscape. Even in this book, we don't introduce or present about the temple, but we more on the cultural landscape itself. Okay, next, you can see a little bit about what we were doing 10 years, every year. So this one is like an annual, and we stay on that village within 1 week. We visited the remain of the ancient lake, and we visited looking what is the geology's heritage in there and others. And these activities also, we involved the local participant like Mas Hatta, that you can see the young person over there. Next, and we moved to the latest online international summer course on Jogja World Batik City in 2021, that we try to focus on balancing creative economy and heritage, once again, heritage Saujana conservations to foster SDGs. So in this case, when we start with the Borobudur Field School, we only have 3 or 4 partners or collaborators. But within this, we have so many collaborators and so many actors, participants to be invited, and I will mention later on. However, next, in between all those, we organize a lot of international field schools. Not to mention is the Jogja, about Yogyakarta, about temples with TU Wins, with Kota Gede after the disaster. We organize a lot of things there. And then the collaborators like UGM with TU Win, UGM with Kyoto, UGM with Tokyo University and UTM, and then UGM with TU Delft. So we organize on site within usually like a week to organize this. So this is in between of our first and then the latest one. Next. And when we had the pandemic this is COVID-19, then we made it online, and we have a lot of benefit and opportunity in this case. Next. We can see our program at that moment. Actually, we planned to have the field school is in Imogiri, the Batik village. But with this pandemic, then we organized in Yogyakarta. And Yogyakarta was declared as the Jogja World Batik City in 2014. And it was declared in Donyang in China, and the only city in the world that called the Batik World Batik City. So we tried to utilize this, and we asked many collaborators, in this case like with Kyoto University, TU Wien, with the SIACA. SIACA is organization of the heritage organization in Southeast Asia, and then the Ikatan Arsitek Indonesia, the Architects Associations, and then also Landscape Architects Associations, and also the Batik organization is Sekar Jagat. So we have more collaborators in this. Next. And when we prepare the curriculum, we can see that when we organize on site within a week, we mostly having the lectures schedule. But this one, we can organize within 3 months. And we also can organize what is called the International E-Public Forum schedule, that the participants can be more people participate, and we invite more, we can say, high-ranked decision makers as well as international experts. So we have more opportunity in this case, that we have more public, we have more people to be communicate. Yes, once again, communication is very important. So this is also the time that we can communicate our scientific issue to more people. So this is the online system. Next. We can see from this one, this is the series of lectures. Our lecturers like Kangki Sensei, and also Pak Manu, Ibu Dwita, Ibu Uli, and Pak Wihana, Professor Wihana, Professor Baikuni, they are all our lecturers. So we have the system like teaching and the lectures. However, next, in the activities of the International E-Public Forum, we can invite many people. For instance, like in Yogyakarta, we invite for the opening remarks, like Ibu Ratu Hemas. She is Dekranas, is the councils of the craft in Yogyakarta. So she is the wife of our governor and our king of Yogyakarta. And we can also invite ambassador of Indonesia in at that moment in New Zealand, Tantowi Yahya, talking about the communication and how to promote about the batik, about the Yogyakarta. And we can also invite even our Director General of the Educations in the Ministry of Education and Culture, Research and Technologies. We invite also the Ministry of the Transportations. So how is the relation transportation and heritage? But there are a lot of relations. And the last point, we also invite the Mr. Sandiaga. She is the Minister of the Tourism. And we can invite high-rank activists on heritage economic, like Professor Donovan Repkema from Washington, D.C., that he is the ones that relates to Main Street program in United States. And Anupama is the ones that from the ASEF, Asia Europe foundations that related with the activities of the Ministry of Culture in Europe and Indonesia. And then Jennifer, she is in Santa Fe in United States, and she is the ones that making the curator for products from Indonesia for United States. So this kind of opportunity, it actually is, we can then prepare the syllabus, what we're supposed to do with this kind of opportunity, with, that the student can meet all those people. Next. And at that moment, we also prepare virtual tour. So with the, right now we have what you can say blogger and vlogger, and that is some things that we can make the virtual tour, and then everybody can also see, even though you are staying in your house. And our student at that moment is 40 students from all over the world, and they are staying at home. They can see the class, and then we provide all these materials. Next. Then we can start what is our curriculum. Why Yogyakarta is declared as the World Batik City? Because Yogyakarta meet the criteria is the historical value, authenticity value, conservation value, economic value, environmental value, global value, and sustainable value. In this case, batik also can relate with the space, the nature, the human. The space is the Saujana itself, because many villages in Yogyakarta and also other places outside of Yogyakarta that having the village batik. Next. From this, we can see how is the creative economy works with from this batik space. Next. And related with sustainable developments, because then we can one by one check what is the goals with the conservations of the batik space. Next, you can see this one, almost all, right? We can relate with the goals. So batik conservations, especially the space having the batik conservations, will then become the bridge for meeting the, to foster the SDGs. Next, and this is our curriculum. Next, this curriculum. Next, yes, next. This one, from the other one, the blue one is the lectures, and the brown one is the International e-Public Forum. So you can see the difference, but this curriculum, the syllabus, can be fit in our new approach in heritage education. Next. Then we put also the virtual tour. Next. The closing ceremony, as well as the participant assignments. And we now having the materials and the result that we would like also to make it like the book like this. And the next, the closing ceremony, next, we can see this one. Even we can invite the Ministry of the Foreign Affairs and also the Governor of the Bank of Indonesia. He is the highest rank of the decision makers in Indonesia. We can do this one because it's online. And our rector at that moment also has given the opening remarks. And the keynote speakers is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and then the Governor of Indonesia. Why the Governor of Indonesia should be invited? Because the Governor of Indonesia also, the Bank of Indonesia, having a program of the development of the craft all over Indonesia. Like the latest one, they also having the ones with the Paris Fashion Week, for instance. So this is from the Bank of Indonesia. And then the the program from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is about the culture diplomacy. So in this case, we can in contact with so many parties because the platform is online. So many opportunities, and then you can touch this below our website that you can see all of this program. And the fashion show also virtual at that moment that organized over there in Yogyakarta. Next, consequentially in our educations, in the Department of Architectures, we have a cluster that focus on history, theory, and conservations. So we have in this case to support more and to develop more on those history, theory, and conservations. Because conservation is about management of change. And management of change also the one that now become the themes of current celebrations of World Heritage Day on April 18th. So we will focus the management of change and the conservations. And next, we in our cluster, we try to develop our human resources as well as the cluster of knowledge productions. One cluster focus on history and theory, and then the other cluster focus on the elaborations of those theory, history, and then the types of the heritage, like a cultural landscape, architectural heritage, urban design, and then supported with architectural and urban heritage conservation and management. Next, we will then, in this heritage conservations, next, we will then focus on the heritage city conservation and management that in the future that we would like to develop this one, because in the heritage city is not only just a city but also the region. So the collaborations of many of the issue of history, theory, and then the sites, and then the conservation and managements, and we will then support on make it the enforcements. Next, the master program that we have. Next, master program of architecture and master program of urban design, and maybe also the master of the urban planning on the concentration. We just add the concentration on heritage city, conservation, and management, because there is also something that we have to develop more, because in Indonesia we have a lot of heritage cities. Next. And the last point that I would like to mention, and in this occasions, we would like to invite also my student in a master program on the courses, what is called architecture, urban, and saujana conservation. Then this will be an example of student assignments that we had heritage interpretation strategies for Van de Bos Fortress and its heritage city of Ngawi. So they will make a presentation in this after this. Okay, this is what I can say, that we have to do a lot more after so many opportunity that we can have post the pandemic. Thank you. Terima kasih.
Tepuk tangan Bu Sita. Halo. Thank you very much, Bu Sita. I think Bu Sita provide a very interesting overview of what we have done so far in terms of education and conservation. Very long, 2 decades even, experience of Bu Sita, in which I note several interesting points to discuss later. First, that what we have done is actually already covered in our motto of Gajah Mada, 3 Dharma, 3 mission of university: research, teaching, research, and community services. So what we learn from Bu Sita, start from summer field school, Borobudur, and also online courses, we know that those 3 missions of university are can be combined very effectively and efficiently in one package, for example. Second, what we have to learn also that most of the activities are using very important to discuss later, real case study, right? Borobudur. I think you forget to mention also Subak. Subak Village in Bali, also interesting case of education and conservation, but really real case study with field first-hand experience for the participant. That's also very important. Not only in the class. Even when you have online course, it's also combined with the virtual, field work. That's also very interesting. Third important point I note is that in most of the cases resulted in real kind of idea solution, because we have a kind of tradition studio, right? So every short course always have an output of some ideas, solution for problem we face in the case study. So that's also very important, not just theory, but also provide direct and practical solution. And then another comment that I make notes is all art can be done because of good collaboration and communication. So nowadays in the future also we have to make sure that we have to enlarge, develop a large network to collaborate with everyone interested in conservation, and through collaboration we can do quite many things in terms of education and collaboration. And lastly, we learned from the pandemic that now through online or hybrid, a combination of offline and online, we can do almost every ideas we have, involving very inclusive education, involving so many stakeholders from abroad, not only the participant but also the lecture can be involving so many teachers from so many parts of the world, and that is the benefit of pandemic COVID-19 that we have. We can have more efficient short course. Terima kasih Bu Sita, and again tepuk tangan untuk Bu Sita. Before we continue then to Kangki. Kangki, please, you have 15 minutes.
Yeah, good morning.
Yeah, morning, Kangki.
Is it possible to share my slide from here or your side? Which is better?
From here.
From here.
Okay.
From Jogja, okay.
Okay.
You can just say next, Kangki.
Okay, thank you. So, good morning from Kyoto, and good morning for everybody in the world and in Jogja and in UGM. And thank you very much for inviting me here. And I have so much memory about the collaboration with all of you. And at the same time now, I just remembered that Gajah Mada University students have a long history to collaborate with the community. I really sure, because for an example, I met many groups of Gajah Mada University students in many villages in around Jogja or in Sumatra too. who are doing some surveys for the community. For example, making the maps or making the statistics or something. And it's a very frequently we can share the data like a population or a community system or something from such students' works. So Gajah Mada University is a very special university, I think, and you have a very long history of such a community works, maybe more than 40 years or something, I think. So always I have much respect to your history, actually. And today, I like to introduce our little bit new program privately, but is now active inside the city center of Kyoto. And I like have a kind of the experience from the such important field school activity by you to modify a little bit, to make a little bit of change scale to introduce to the Japan and especially in Kyoto. So today's my report is about the students' works inside the Kyoto city. You can see these two photographs. This is rather small houses, small traditional houses. It is a rental houses inside the city center of Kyoto. And this is good, but a little small and not so rich people's house, more like ordinary house or cheaper house at the same time. So it is quite important for the urban system understanding about the history of Kyoto, but it is not so good situation because it's so small and the rental house. So many people cannot imagine this is a very important heritage. This is a rather small thing, but necessary and important. So we are now starting one project to collaborate owner and our colleagues and the students. So I like to show the situation of us. And today's title is Kyoto Historic Urban Spaces as Collaborative Shared Residence for Students in Kyoto. And first question from me is, can we take over row houses in the back alleys for future of historic urban landscape Kyoto? In this moment, problematic, but we should do something. So I like to have idea from you also. So I am just showing our effort now. And this is from me at the same time from the Kagiyaso related contributors for this presentation. So it means Kagiyaso is a small house for students. And we organize the Kagiyaso rental house for students a little bit a special way. And there is so many collaborators and the contributors. So we made this presentation by all the by all the collaborators up to yesterday. So this is not just my presentation, this is our presentation. So next, please. Yeah, today's stories is three. One is the row houses in the back alley as Kyoto urban space system. This is the explanation. And the second is about the ownership and the succession of such row houses in the back alleys. And the third one is living and academic and historic urban resources for university students. This is our activities. And you can see the yellow line in the photograph. There is one small house in the back areas. This is our place. This is Kagiyaso rental houses in the really city center. but a very small area. And this is quite important. Next, please. Yes, this is a photograph just after the World War II in 1946. Photograph taken by the U.S. Air Force actually after the end of the war. You can see the very historic traditional situation of Kyoto City. It's a center. So you can see almost all the houses are wood houses, and they have the grid system of the street system. It is very traditional one. And part of such a situation with the traditional houses still existing. And that is also very important heritage, and designation is successful for some cases. And in the right-hand side, it is more zoom out. And the yellow part, you can see the yellow lines. This is our activities and our collaborators related houses. And please see the pink colors. We have the street system in the grid form, but inside the one rectangular, there is so many low houses in the past. So it means that in facing the streets, maybe the houses are very rich or sometimes a masterpiece, but inside the rectangular, low houses are small, they're not facing the streets, and a little bit cheap, sometimes a little bit bad environment in the past. So much population inside the small places or something. So the situation is a little bit different, street side and inside. So, but it is a street system and urban style, urban system in Kyoto. So we have to pay attention to the such row houses at the same time. Next, please. Yeah, this is the present photograph. And please remember the yellow part is ongoing, is existing. We kept these two houses from the same photograph from the actually more than 100 years. And we are now supporting one row houses of the blue. And this situation, we have so many kinds of the programs about the ownership and the succession. Actually, and in Kyoto town house is decreasing. And during these 5 or 6 years, rapidly decreasing actually. Why? We have so many struggle to keep, but the situation is more related to the tax system and the land price. Urban planning focuses on the outlook control, actually. So urban planning cannot support the owners about the tax. So it is problematic, actually. And the heritage designation focuses on rich, precious masterpiece buildings mainly. So especially for the owners or managers of the row houses in the background race, not be supported by the heritage system. But the inheritance tax system is a big difficulties for the owners, especially in the urban center, because the value of the land is very high. And so many buyers like to buy to construct the hotels or something. So if the owner is a little bit weak or older, they sometimes like to sell for something or for the next generation or something. So it is quite a problematic situation in this moment. And but the urban environment with owners and the row houses, two kinds of the street side house and inside the rectangular house is one of the one system of the open space. So we like to keep actually. So we are committing to this example in this moment. Now this is our big problem, but at the same time we have a small activities to keep and to manage in the new way about the row houses inside in rectangular with the collaboration with owners at the same time to make a more interesting utilization to provide idea to utilize more about such a small houses. Next, please. Yeah. So this is our activities. We are having a collaboration with the street side house A and the smaller houses, 6 smaller houses group B. And the A is the owned houses by the one family. And the B is the rental houses owned by the same family. This is a kind of the traditional type. One family keeps their own house at the same time keeps the rental house at the same time. This is maybe very ordinary situation around 100 years ago. But nowadays it is separated mainly. But this family kept the very good tradition, so we became the friend with them and started the idea to utilize more, especially for the students, about the row houses. And the right-hand side, it is the activities construct, how to say, human network. We call the blue small one row house, Kagiyaso, and this is the collaborative shared residence for students in Kyoto now. And B1 is the target. This is the collaborative shared residence, and the B1 owned by the original owner, same as A, and our group rent this house from that family. And we do the sublease to the students because the students cannot pay everything. It is quite expensive actually. So we sublease in the reasonable price to students, and the students can inhabit here. 2 students can inhabit here, and they are good environment for themselves, but at the same time, they are working to have an academic survey about these buildings and the history around here by themselves. And such a collaboration makes the students getting a little bit good incentive to keep the good environment for their inhabitants. So this is such a collaborative situation. So it is a little bit special. Next please. And originally, this project started from my own history because, you know, maybe Shita-san knows Uzo Nishiyama. Uzo Nishiyama, this person is a supervisor of our supervisor. Nishiyama is the supervisor of Mimura Sensei. And Mimura Sensei is the supervisor of us, including Shita-san. So we have very good information from Uzo Nishiyama because he wrote so many books about, very important books about the Japanese housing. This is the one of the book, Nihon no Sumai. And inside this book, that our target houses drawn inside, we can get the information about A and B in this in such sketches. And almost all the situation is still surviving. So we have a very good opportunity to get contact with the owner and to get contact with other collaborators who has interest about this book. And we started the collaboration. This is a little bit special background. Next, please. And this is inside of our target Kagiyaso, B1. It's a rental houses, row house. The first floor, you can see very traditional, but also you can see this is a small room. It's not big room, very small. And second floor is a right-hand side. It's not big. Actually, this very small room, but outside it's very good open space because they can share the open space outside with the next houses in this kind of the traditional types of the connection to the A and B. And so it means that the row houses is very small actually, but good open space system. And hopefully they can have a good community with the ownership people. And because they must pay the rent for the owners, and that it is not just a pay and payment, but it is a kind of the communication. So sharing the environment, especially about the open space, and the payment is a communication. So the students can speak with the owners and the owners can speak with the students. That is a very important thing. And especially this is not a heritage. This is not a heritage, just a rental house actually. So there is just information by the Uzo Nishiyama. So students have their opportunity to have an academic work about these houses too. This is their starting point. Next, please. Yeah, I'm sorry. It is a little bit complicated slide, but this is the program. In the right-hand side, please, first blue, how to say, first blue part of the right-hand side is opinion and the situation from the ownership. Owner family has kept the philosophy. They are a little bit special owners. Their understanding is row houses should be places for the cultural learnings. Actually, the owner is now around 80 years old, but he says, we kept such a philosophy. And so the row houses, rent houses, it's not mere rented houses, but special fruitful activities. So they are very welcoming the students. This is a very good opportunity for us in this program. The center part is organizing people's idea. In this case, main organizer is Mr. Okamoto from Academic Resource Guide Incorporated. He is the not the governmental people, is not the professor, not owner. He is from the field of the informatics and the publishing, the librarian and the consultant. And he is from the Yokohama. He is not from Kyoto. And but he knows well about the Nishiyama. And so he is the first person to get contact with the owner to start about such a residence. And he really started the shared lodgings 10 years ago. But at the time, and there is not connected to the students. But during the COVID-19, we changed the shared lodgings for students. And there is some kind of the happenings to change the scheme, but to support the students is a really original idea. So we started finally the ongoing system. And he have many contributors and the collaborators and colleagues. And I am the one of the such Okamoto-san's colleagues. And it means that Okamoto-san and the colleagues, including me, can connect the creators, activists, researchers, many important adult people to students. And the third part is the idea from the students. Students in this moment from the Kyoto City, especially Department of Architecture, actually. And the two students are now living inside, and their motivation is, oh, we can do academic works here, and the academic interest and the results we can have here. And very interesting for them, especially we can have experience about authentic urban lives of Kyoto environment and having a good accessibility. And also they got to get good chance to get more wider human networks by Okamoto-san and the collaborators. At the same time, to be a friend with the traditional family of owners. And in this moment, the students are the round 2. And we started this one 2020, really during the COVID-19, and they stay there around 2 years. After that, they changed. And now we have the 2 students, Toita-kun and Masuda-kun. And the Zoom photograph is the record of the doing the discussing to change the round with the students and Okamoto-san and the collaborators. So it is quite a good communication. Who can be the next? It is also the good communication, thinking about what kind of academic work or something. So this is our programs now. Next, please. Yeah, this is a kind of the example of the activities. For example, left-hand side, young architects from Tokyo visited the students last year. It is quite good to take an opportunity to collaborate with many people, and the students have a good chance to be a friend to the people from Tokyo too. And one more photograph is a collaborator. One of our collaborators visited the students last year. And she is also the librarian and the researchers. And the collaborator, including me, can stay a little bit here and also utilize this place for some academic works because we pay rent. But of course, we support the students. So every time we will communicate the students to collaborate in many ways. And the right-hand side, this is Okamoto-san. Tomorrow morning, we have the open house, really. And we invite just the 20 participants for the open house now. And the main event is research result presentation by the students. Really good. And actually, Okamoto-san invited a very important person from all over Japan from such open houses. This is very special thing. It's surprising, actually. Oh, this person will come here. For example, one vice mayor of other city, maybe we'll visit. So it's such a kind of the special human network will be widened. Next, please. Yeah, and I will introduce two students' result. It is quite academic and very important. This is the first academic interest and the result by the residents around one in 2 years ago. This is in the owned house. You can find the same sketches by the Nishiyama here, and in the part of the these old houses, there was the hidden structure under the floor, but nobody confirmed. So 2 years ago, the students was asked by the owner of the house A to have a survey. And this is the result. Actually, the structure hidden inside the under the floor. And the students of the architecture can make a measurement and drawing the sketches and making the report for the owner. And this is the result. Next, please. And this is ongoing things. Round 2 students. Toita-kun, one of the round 2 students, is very, very good at making the measurement and sketching and making the analysis of the buildings. So they just started just after the inhabitants. And already they had such a measurement, very precise measurement and sketching many ways. And this is more than Nishiyama's work, and at the same time respecting the Nishiyama's works. And it is quite good for me to think about what is the row houses in the architectural eyes. And they already having findings. This house is not just old. Having a traditional system of scale, at the same time, very modern system of the scaling inside the houses. So that is a new idea about our Kyoto Machiya style. So it is ongoing, but good results already. Next, please. Okay, so this is the final. So we are doing such a new activities for the students, and this is in this moment tiny activities because on one house program, but it is for the emphasizing and having importance. How to say importance? The people must be think about this kind of the small row house is important for the heritage of Kyoto. It is ongoing, just starting, but in such a way, maybe we can save more small houses inside the rectangular system, and the continuing the system from the owner house to the row house with the open space of the environment can be saved more. And that is the conservation of the Kyoto historic urban landscape. So it is necessary to widen this kind of activities. And this looks like ongoing field school, not just 1 week. It is something like a 2 years field school, something for the 2 students. So this is also partly just inspiration from our experience in Borobudur at the same time in Gajah University. So thank you very much for this invitation for making such a report from me. So thank you very much. And I think I'm really hoping that this kind of small activities for us can be kind of the contribution to your wider experience. Thank you very much.
Hello, hello. Yeah.
Hello.
Thank you, Kanki, for sharing to us. Maybe can be considered small pilot project, but very important in terms of the whole Kyoto conservation, because you are mentioning the importance of Machiya, the compound house, the small house for future activities, in this case students. Yeah? So, and also provide a real life experience for students living 2 years, living together with the community. In which, in the case of Indonesia, especially Jogja, we also have this kind of tradition we call as kos-kosan, yeah, right? In which the owner of the house rent 1 or 2 rooms for the student, and that's serve really a good kind of social network between students, usually coming from outside the city with the local resident. Yeah. Maybe one thing that we can answer later on, my question whether you did some renovation of that small house, Kaki also. But later on, Kaki.
Actually, the house itself renovated by the owner, because the owner is a little bit kind person.
I see.
But actually, it is interesting. Owner have an idea. Which part should be renovated by the owner, and which part should be renovated by the students. So, for example, making a good garden or making a good backyard is by the student, actually. It is quite interesting. It's also the culture, maybe. And
that's really a good case of historic urban landscape, right? Using the management of change, right? Using the old resources for you. Okay, thank you, Kenki. We can discuss more later on. Now we move to you, Ori. 15, Uli.
Okay.
15 to 20 minutes. I did not count, but please.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. Very happy to speak today in this panel discussion on cultural heritage spaces. And I will talk a little bit also of our common history about these approaches in research and also in teaching for the conservation of cultural heritage. For this, I start with a nice presentation that was put together by Pak Ika Putra in 2015. Back then it was our 10-year celebration of collaboration already. And it's one example that shows that what is very important for the interdisciplinary and international collaboration is to be very flexible. Because the program started as an idea of a European Union-funded art-based research project on cultures of living back in 2002 to be implemented in the beginning of 2005. But then the tsunami earthquake happened, so the whole program had to be changed and was then focused on a collaborative design workshop for transitional and future shelters of people who lost their homes in the tsunami. This was the base of our collaboration between UGM and TU Wien with postdoc programs, students and staff exchange. We had together 2 very successful symposia. The first one on traditional, next slide. Oh, sorry, I'm changing here my slides. I have to say, next slide, yeah. Here you see, Pak Ika Putra, of course, put together in his style, and I like this presentation very much, so I wanted to share it with you. So, the very nice details on our collaboration back until 2015. Next slide, please. I'm not used to say this. Okay, so the collaboration, succeeded in 2 very nice symposia. One on traditional art and architecture on NIAS was the first international symposium on this topic. because NIA's architecture is especially earthquake resistant. If you remember, the epicenter of the tsunami earthquake was close to NIA's, and no person was harmed in one of the traditional buildings. So we can learn a lot of traditional houses for sustainable building also in the future. Same direction was also a lot of presentation and discussion during the Indonesian Symposium Insular Diversity in 2011, where we had the pleasure to welcome really a huge number. I think everybody who was kind of related to cultural heritage at UGM came to Austria, and we had the pleasure to visit Wachau on dragon boats, which was a very interesting experience for all the participants. And within this framework, we started this discussion about how we can continue collaborative research, but also collaborative teaching. One part was the ASIP project on architecture, space and society in post-disaster built environments, where we compared the different relief processes after the earthquakes in Nias and Yogyakarta in 2006. And this is this continuing interrelation between our universities, which are going on until today. Next slide, please. So in the last 5 years, we could conduct very interesting workshops on, for example, joint documentation of the Museum Affandi to create a base for sustainable restoration processes for the future. We had a joint workshop on photogrammetry and laser scanning to build the base for future monitoring system of small chandis around Yogyakarta. And then COVID happened, and we started to do our online classes on modules in a way that we conducted it this time in the collaboration with Atmajaya University, which we are very happy that this year is, next slide please, a new collaboration coming up with Atmajaya, where we could also, in adjacent to this collaboration, sign an MOU between the universities, but also between the national committees of ICOMOS Austria and ICOMOS Indonesia, as Ibu Nisa is one of the vice presidents of ICOMOS Indonesia. So very happy to have this as an idea to combine the expert profession, the expert community with the teaching at the university. So that's why we are conducting this module, Cultural Spaces, Research on Architecture and Identity. Next slide, please. The idea of the curriculum that we are conducting this semester is that we want to bring students to research in architecture. The idea is to go with students in different, to different cultures, to show all the steps that are needed to conduct a research project, from ideas to the field work, to compiling your results, to write a research paper, and to discuss during the field work already what kind of research project you could compile together. Next slide, please. Very important is that we have these 4 levels within the curriculum. We have a lecture series where, of course, we have to introduce the students into the environments that we are going to visit in the fieldwork. We have a lecture series and fieldwork where students are introduced into fieldwork tools and also approaches. And then they are going to the fieldwork and compile their results in a seminary paper. They can use their findings to put them together in an analysis and to have conclusions out of that they are presenting that at the end of the semester. And finally, in a lecture series, the students learn these really tool frameworks that you need to conduct research, and so that they can use this to create their own research ideas. Next slide, please. So this semester we are working here on the attribute mapping for World Heritage Sites, comparing how you approach this idea between Borobudur and the World Heritage Site, historic city of Vienna. Details on that will be presented by Renate later on. And next slide, please. We are working on this topic in introducing the topics. The regions go on fieldwork here, so that's what we conducted last week. Then we make the debrief of the fieldwork in Indonesia, prepare for a fieldwork in Austria, which I am very happy that we can welcome students from Atmajaya University in Vienna to do the same attribute mapping in Austria with a different approach, of course, because it's a heritage city. The other part is the cultural landscape. But to show the students how this is done and especially discuss what it can be used for in the future for the sustainable and successful management of sites is the very core topic of this module. Yeah, and then finally the students compile their research papers, make the presentation, and we have final presentations which we hopefully can also submit to BKB, Balai Konservasi Borobudur, who asked to be supported in their endeavors for the management of the Borobudur World Heritage Site. As all of you know about it, it's done with so many entities that the task in the moment is very challenging. Next slide, please. Why are we conducting these ideas? Ibu Sita already showed nearly all of the sustainable development goals are touched by the research and also education of conservation of cultural heritage. In our framework, we're focusing on these 6 especially because when we are working on these ideas of cultural heritage conservation in this interdisciplinary and also international way, we are appreciating the diversity of cultural heritage all over the world. We see that cultural heritage has to be done in different disciplines, introducing also the local communities, introducing managers, administrators, but of course also those people who are in education. And you, of course, now especially using mobility and ICT tools. In this way, you learn new expertise, and cultural heritage conservation, but also management offers a quite huge range of new job opportunities. So we are also tackling this sustainable development goal number 8 for a future growth in economy, especially for local communities where there is not too much perhaps around else. Learning from the past for an inclusive, safe and resilient built environment, of course, is a core topic on the cultural heritage, education and conservation. You can learn a lot of how to conserve cultural heritage in introducing this as an economic source. So with this sustainable conservation, you can also create a new responsible tourism. And of course, if you use local material or also traditional building techniques, you can tackle low energy consumption and also disaster mitigation, as I mentioned already before, with the example of NIAS, as there the buildings are so exceptionally earthquake resistant. And finally, as we are sitting here together, we are working on the cultural heritage as a universal common value. So it's a collaborative work, and it strengthens and also creates new partnership around the world, which is the Sustainable Development Goal number 17 and also super important. So, and I hope we can continue this fruitful work, and I hope that I can also welcome other staff and students in Vienna soon, and we can continue with this successful process so far. Thank you very much. Last slide. Matur and terima kasih.
Oh, nice view. I know that place. your second home, right? Somewhere on
At home.
the west part of the area. Okay, thank you, Uli. I think what we learned from Uli is that first, again, collaboration is very much important in terms of conservation and education. Second, I think also I learned that flexibility in developing program is also important to respond to the new challenge and opportunity. And the third one is that international joint kind of studio, work between Indonesian student and foreign student will be very useful in this global village, in which each student can learn from others in this on the issue of conservation. I think in different kind of model we used also to have that similar program. Only we call as a joint international joint studio. Of course, not always in conservation, but the similar idea in which foreign student come to Yogyakarta, working together with Yogyakarta student Gajah Mada to work on specific case study, real case study. So, for example, on May 15, students from the Netherlands will come here in Semarang to learn about the resilient issue of Semarang and Yogyakarta. And on July, I guess 33 students from Queensland University also will come to Jogja to join together with another 30 students from Gajah Mada to work on specific
a subject. I mean, it's a place that you have never been aware of. You have some kind of a cultural shock and so forth. But we're coming here for certain issues, and we're coming here for certain ideas, and that's what I wanted to just highlight once again. So maybe I can have the second slide.
Next, please.
Yeah, thank you. So it is about why is it actually important to talk about cultural heritage. What is it that we are really interested in? Is it just that we want to conserve pastis epochs, or do we want to have some kind of museums and so forth? I think not. Because the cultural heritage and all the buildings and also the cities, the villages, they incorporate some kind of knowledge which has developed over the millennia, all over the world. There's no place in the world where we can say, oh, it just happened just in 2 or 3 days' time. It's, or maybe a few years, maybe a few centuries, maybe the Americas are a little bit of a difference, but apart of that, we always have the shaping factors of our buildings are something like climate, the landscape, but also the economy of a place. And culture, very important. Each region has developed a certain culture, and finally we also have social factors. And that means that in the end of the day we have buildings that have a certain logic, which we need to know, because this logic is an adaptation to the environment, an adaptation to the social implication, and also to a specific culture. And therefore, it is quite important to know about those factors, and I'm talking as an architect here, because I'm by training, I am an architect, and for me it's always important, how shall I build in the future? I mean, I need to have some kind of equipment, some tools, how to develop these ideas, and this is my main issue, why I really am involved in all that what I'm doing. May I have the next slide? So if we look to those 3 buildings, some guesses around here in the audience, maybe also online, where these could be. I think it's quite difficult to tell where we are.
Jakarta.
Which one?
On the top one.
No, it's not true. So can I have the first slide is we have central China on top, France in the middle, and Java in the bottom. So what does this mean? We have 3 times, I mean, it could be anywhere. Can I have the next slide, please? Next slide.
Next.
So if we now just look at the temperatures, just from that point of view, we see that, I mean, China is relatively cold, at least Beijing is relatively cold and goes up to 30 degrees. And particularly in summer, we have a very, very, in summer times, we have a warm but very humid climate. In winter, it's very dry, very cold. Complete different in France, because in France, particularly Paris, it's hardly below 3 degrees. It's more like 10 degrees, and it goes up maybe to 25, but not often. Yeah, it's quite stable, and the rain is moderate, but all year round. And if we go to Java, I don't have to tell you anything about that here. So may I have the next slide, please? So, and then we have also certain, that was one too much, however. So then we have the hilly landscape in central China. We have a very flat landscape in France. If you are not going to the Alpine region, it's quite flat there. And then we have the volcanic landscape in Java. What is also important, we have certain philosophies of planning, and this is what the left column is. We have still this yin-yang idea of planning in China, although it may be not anymore apparent, but the underlying principle is still this yin-yang philosophy that shapes cities, villages, and houses. And then we have a European approach, which is not really a philosophy behind. I have to say, we don't have that. We have just planning strategies, but there is not really a philosophy behind. And finally, we have Java or Indonesia, where still the mandala principle is not so, it's still very, very apparent. It is still stamping the houses, is still a very, very important component of planning houses, planning cities, and so forth. May I have the next slide, please? And this is now the reality, what traditional houses looked like. I just took photographs from China, the kampongs, the hutongs. Then I showed just a French house in the Bretagne, which is close to the sea. And then, of course, you know, the last picture, which is here in the Kraton of Jakarta. But only looking at the pictures reveals already, I mean, we don't have to know where these houses look like, but if I had now just blended out the other columns, you would really see already, okay, in the bottom picture, it must be some kind of very hot, and you need to have every single breath, every single slight wind that goes through and makes the climate more easily acceptable. On the other hand, in the French example shows us, again, lots of rain there, not monsoon rain, but still a bit of rain. But you see it's already very cozy, very close down. You see that it might be a little bit more chilly in winter time. You don't want to have the wind blowing through the house. And just about looking at those architectural features, you see it reveals already quite a lot about just the economy and the temperature, and also about climate. May I have the next slide, please? Yes, and the same happens, or the same is here if we look at the city maps. This is now from Beijing, where we have this, again, lots of rings with the inner city, which is the so-called forbidden city, then the royal city, which then we have the so-called Tartar city and the so-called Chinese city on the bottom, and all cities are connected via a long axis starting from the Tiananmen Square going down to the Chinese cities. And all along this axis we have lots of temples connecting each spaces. And I think this is also one of those important things that we see. It's not just rings like we might plan in Europe, but they're all connected via certain elements, and again, important to understand if we were to plan something. May I have the next slide? In Europe, we don't have that. We have just the development of little crisscrossing streets. We might have a central, I don't know, courtyard, which is here in Paris. You see the Ile-de-France, which is the very center, this little island. Then we have, to the left, we have the palace, the former palace of the king, and so forth. But there is not really a pattern. It's a pattern between wider streets, more narrow streets, but it's not really a philosophy behind it until today. So may I have the next slide? And if I go now to Yogyakarta, we know I don't have to talk about this axis, but again, we have a connecting axis between the certain realms of the city, and I think, again, important to understand. Next slide, because I'm running out of time. So, what we say in e-commerce so often is, and also in UNESCO, the future is our past. And this is like saying, yes, it's a slogan. We could say, ha ha, very funny. But I think it's a certain amount of truth behind it. Because we have to go into the future by learning from pastiche times, because at the moment we have a uniformity of cities and villages and also architecture. And with this goes an identity loss all over the world. And last but not least, it also is helping, or traditional buildings often enough help against climate change. May I have the next slide? So, and that means now, for going back to the curricula, why is it important to learn something like we are doing now with our students coming over from Austria to go to Indonesia, and then Indonesian students going back to Austria, and we hope we continue with this kind of exchange in certain ways. But it is not just, as I said, traveling and finding nice places, which they are certainly. It is also that you create an understanding of the cultural heritage of one site. So identify the unique character of a site. It's about uniqueness. And then learn strategies for understanding. So how can I do? I mean, it is important to understand what the cultural heritage is all about, but it is as much important to have some kind of tools around. How can I learn to understand this? As an architect, you sit often enough in an office, and then it is something like, well, there is a competition, and you want to participate in this competition. And you cannot start from scratch by just inventing new tools how to really analyze a place in a very short time. So this means this must be part of a university curriculum which Ulrike Herbig was developing just a few years, well, some time ago already. And then, also important for students, how to transfer this knowledge about heritage into the future, because we don't want to have a museumification. It's about living heritage, a livable heritage. So that means we need to allow every new generation needs to have their own ideas. But it is not about international style, it's about the ideas developing from your region or wherever you go, developing from what is there and trying to lift it up to the next generation. May I have the next slide, please? And now I give you an example which I did in Hamburg in Germany. So may I have the next slide? There was a competition, and I mean, you see what the Speicherstadt currently looks like, or the Konterhausviertel. It's a very unique architecture, although just developed in the turn between the 19th to the 20th century, because there was no need for this storehousing before that. So this was a newly developed area. But I think it's a very unique architecture and a very unique style. And now it was the idea of how to find out the details, the so-called attributes that we have now in e-commerce and UNESCO speech. May I have the next slide? And this is now what the architects, the final architecture, the winners of the competition made. And this is just now an image, but I think it blends in quite well into the environment, because I think we don't really see on that slide what is new and what is old. At a second glance you would see it, but at first glance it blends in and it somehow takes over the old structures, the old ideas behind the buildings, not only to the facade, also inside, I have to say. And so I think this is one of the examples where I say heritage has been transformed into the next generation, has some new features which haven't been there before. But it's still, it says, okay, I'm a building from the 21st century, but I respect what is on the place and I try to develop further the ideas of the past. And I hope we will be able to do something like that in Indonesia, with your very rich heritage, and I also hope that we have some solutions like that also in Europe, because it's really a need, and I think that's why we're here, and that's why architectural students should really be aware of what to build and how to build. May I have the next slide, please? So again, architects, planners, and everyone is included in the in creating environments. They should learn from the heritage. They should be inspired. They should interpret it and find new solutions how to evolve that can be evolving from the heritage, not elsewhere, but from what you have in a place. And therefore, I guess it must be a compulsory part of university curricula generally, because without that, I think we will face big dramatics and big problems in the near future if we don't really have curricula for students, for architects to be, if we just miss that chance out. Next slide, please. And that's, thank you very much. And I hope there is a fruitful discussion later on. Thank you.
Well, Renata, I like very much your formula. Learn from heritage, yes. Be inspired by heritage, and then interpret the heritage, especially then the last one for a new solution, future solution. Yes. Learning from the past for the future. Thank you. Saya kira itu yang menarik, very much important from the importance of heritage education, not just understanding the history, the past, but then transforming into new challenge, new opportunity, and new ideas. Now we move to Mbak Nisa, the president of...
I'm the vice president.
Vice president of the e-commerce Indonesia. Please, Nisa, 15 to 20 minutes maximum.
Okay, Okay, so good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone.
3 seconds.
Oh, 3
Push
seconds.
3 seconds.
Push 3 seconds.
With love.
With love. Yeah.
Okay, is that okay?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, good morning, everyone. It's a very pleasant opportunity for me to share our baby step in compare with UGM and TUI. And I think our university is just starting the baby step of in cultural heritage conservation. But we try our best to map our potential to our strength and also identify the potential from our side to elaborate and also to contribute into cultural heritage conservation. Next, please. Okay, so yeah, that's why we call it baby step, because our university is strongly involved with the cultural heritage. Excuse me, can you share the new version of our presentation in the same link?
Dikirim ke siapa ya, Mbak? Bisa.
Saya modify di link yang sama, jadi tidak di download tapi di link yang sama.
Mungkin bisa saya tambahkan, I can add, Ibu Nisa is graduated from Department of Architecture UGM, and then continue in study in Osaka University, and then so I think the framework or the way of thinking is also from UGM and from Japan.
Are you talking about the Japanese Indonesian mafia and also
Or I can share by myself. Is it? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so yeah, before 2020, actually, that we strongly involved with the Ministry of Research and Technology and Higher Education in composing the management plan of Borobudur Temple Compound. We have already held some lectures and also cultural heritage and tourism related lectures in our university. But from 2020, we have closely involved with some project, especially in Borobudur Temple Compound. First, we start the study about the management plan, and also the next, you know that in Borobudur Temple Compound there's a lot of improvement projects, and we try to evaluate it through heritage impact assessment, and we try to support it with the digital analysis that we have already done in our university. And also at the same year, we had a UNESCO grant to compose the Borobudur Temple Compound Disaster Risk Management Plan, and also create the platform to manage the Borobudur Disaster Risk Management Plan. And also we got some also grants from the Ministry of Education, and some assignment also to evaluate the heritage impact assessment of several projects in Swarna Dipa Information and Research Center in Muara Jambi. And also we continue our research on visual landscape inventory, and also we got the our university also got the Kedereka in collaboration with EC. We create the gamelan metaverse, and also the last one we did a joint class with the TUI, and yeah, it was very dense lecture, but yeah, I think it's very fruitful for both university. Next, please. Yeah, this is our strength, the strength of our department, that our department will focus on digital architecture and sustainable development. And also our curricula is integrated, the integration of Tridharma, so we are not separated the teaching or research and also public services. We plan all those in our curricula. Next, please. And we tailor the curricula not only in one study program, like we tailor it vertically and horizontally. We tailored the bachelor degree, master degree, and doctoral degree. So, for example, in the cultural spaces class, a joint class with TU Win, we elaborate the bachelor student and also master student in the same class, but they can transfer the credit into their own curricula easily. So I think those flexibility also important to make the collaboration between the university continue and sustain in the future. And the next, please. Yeah, of course, our we have close collaboration with the site manager of Borobudur Temple Compound, and we work together in several projects. And of course, they have already a lot of problem that can be transferred into education and also research from our side. For example, Borobudur facing the trash problem because there's a lot of tourism activity and also human-induced hazard that the food stuff has been decaying, and also the development of the facade nearby the Borobudur, inside the Borobudur temple compound. Next, please. And this is from now on, we would like to introduce our project, our elaboration research project in overviewing the some project in Borobudur temple compound. And these are several projects that we did the overview, and we try to elaborate digital architecture more in doing analysis and give some evidence of the impact of the project. Next, please. Okay, so we try to correlate the OUV attribute, hazard, and also measurement, and also some of the strength that some of the viewpoint that we can put on heritage impact assessment, that especially on digital architecture viewpoint. Next, please. So finally, we conclude into 5 small research projects. First, the microclimate research, because you know, in Borobudur Temple is very sensitive about the changes of the climate. And the second is visual landscape research, because from BKB we know that the development nearby the Borobudur Temple is very massive. And also the soundscape research. This is the idea, especially to identify the tranquility level of Borobudur Temple nowadays, because the development also come with a lot of impact. One of the impact is the crowd of the tourism itself, and also from the road. And also the smart learning prototype, this research project is one of our master students project, and he developed how to identify the what it's called. So they try to make a machine learning that can identify the compatibility of the building style with only just scanning and also providing picture. And also the last one is Borobudur disaster management plan, because you know Borobudur has no disaster risk management plan like the integrated one. Okay, next, please. Okay, one of our faculty member, Ibu Florebita Binarti, is focusing on the microclimate research for her PhD. So that's why we asked Bu Flora Virta Binarti to do the microclimate analysis about the project that will be built nearby the Borobudur temple. Next, please. And this is the result of the simulation. And you know we overview the reception hall that will be built. I don't know when, but yeah, but I think it's already finished, the reception hall. And we try to see is that any impact of the changes of the temperature, because the changes of temperature will impact the sustainability of the Borobudur temple, the conservation level of the Borobudur temple. So from this simulation, it looks like there is no impact to the Borobudur temple. But for as a note that this simulation only do in a small scale, so we only simulate those buildings, but not calculate the development that can be triggered by those buildings. So, yeah, and next. And you know that PUPR also developed the concourse that connect the main road to the Borobudur temple very close, and we did the space syntax analysis to see the preference of the people to go around the Borobudur zone 1 and zone 2 before and after the concourse, the building of the concourse. If you can see on the left side is the condition before the concourse development, and the right side is after the concourse. The red color show the intention of people of taking those roads, and you can see that the blue color after the concourse built is very strong. It means that people will only connect to the Borobudur temple instead of going around. But the problem is the media of interpretation, for example, the museum located not close to Borobudur temple, but in the circle road. So I think it's very impacted to the quality level of the visitors. And next is we did the analysis of the vista of the project. So as you know, the concourse opened the view from the road to the Borobudur temple. So it may impact the nearby of the concourse, because maybe the land near the opening of the concourse become more expensive, and then it can trigger more development near the concourse. Okay, next please. Okay, so this is because from BVMP, we know that Saujana Budaya is also from the top of the temple to the surrounding. So we also evaluate how concourse give the like straight cut to the landscape itself. So the project of the concourse is more or less the same as previously, but not repairing the condition of the cultural landscape. So the intervention of the concourse can be designed more better, so it can connect the green line, so the green line can be looks continue from the top of the temple. Next, please. This is the tranquility level in Borobudur temple. You know that to reach the tranquility, we need to reach like 30 decibel, and when we recorded using the sound level sound meter at the top of Borobudur temple, it's 67. It's nearly like in the urban area or in the residential area where the people can easily listen to the sound of motorcycles. So the tranquility of Borobudur need a lot of work to to be returned to the tranquility level. Next, please. And this is the overlighting and its impact. You know that in Borobudur temple, there's a lot of projects that elaborate a lot of lamp poles, and we identify the light, the level of light on that project, and we know that from the simulation that it's equal to urban road lighting. What's the impact of this what's the impact of this lighting. Next, please. Yeah, the activity nearby those lighting become very urban, and we will find like Malioboro look-alike nearby the Borobudur temple. That's we have no further research about the correlation between the light and also the activity itself, but we see the tendency that the light is in the urban level and the activity become urbanized like that. So it's far that than our objective in Borobudur, that our Borobudur should preserve their rural landscape atmosphere. Next, please. Yeah, and also, of course, the cultural heritage is should accommodate cross-cutting issue, that the development also come with the runoff issue in Borobudur temple. And we know that after several development, they have flooding like that. It's very short flooding, but still it's flooding. It's become more frequent than previously, and we identify how much the coverage of the development can increase the level of the runoff. Next, please. And this is one of our student work that we know that PUPR also developed some of facade replacement or rehabilitation. Is that rehabilitation or not? Maybe it's still debatable, but yeah. And also we thought that how can we identify the compatibility of those projects using the machine learning. So it's not only focused on the expert judgment, because you know expert on cultural heritage is very limited. But if we can move into some tools that can validate this is compatible or not, it will be very easy to use, even for the manager. Next, please. And this is the result. And basically, the student make a tools based on machine learning. They put the picture, and they can see the rate of compatibility of the picture to the building style. So this building style has like 98% of the compatibility of the facade of traditional houses. And also we did this analysis to evaluate also the what is called the community center of Kembang Limus, the complete, yeah, bukan Pak, the community center of Kembang Limus that has been built, that's very big, nearby the elephant gate. Yeah, the chopped elephant gate, and yeah, nearby that gate, and also we can see the compatibility. The compatibility is only just the roof, but the scale is not compatible with the rural landscape. I think it's still under development, but this is very promising tools that we can elaborate more with the previous research, maybe research by Busita, to elaborate more about how to make the identification and also compatibility analysis more close to the rural atmosphere that become that is this, the main part of the cultural landscape. Next, please. And also we did the visual landscape inventory of Borobudur Temple compound, because of course Borobudur Temple attract a lot of development nearby, but as we can understand that the conservation is management of change, so we cannot prevent the changes, but we can manage the changes. Next, please. Yeah, and also we have a lot of development on the top of the hill of the Borobudur Temple, because they want to utilize the scenic view from the hill to the Borobudur Temple, and from the hill to the surrounding mountain, because it's very beautiful. But without the proper guideline, it will be very destructive in the future. Next, please. Yeah, and this is, I take it from the Borobudur Visitor Management Plan, that we need to conserve the Saujana Borobudur, as Busita said, that But in fact, it is very difficult to identify which place to be preserved and which place can be developed, because we cannot sterilize all those area is non-developed area. Next, please. That's why we utilize the GIS viewshed from the top of Borobudur Temple. The colored area is the area that can be seen from the top of Borobudur Temple. So it means that the green area that cannot be seen from the top of Borobudur Temple, we need to make some policy that can make the development on those area instead of the colored area. Next, please. Yeah, from the analysis, we can see that from the Borobudur Temple, we can see Ungaran and also Yogyakarta. So it's very far away to be managed. But only in the closed circle, 1 kilometer circle, and also 3 kilometer circle that can be seen in detail. Okay, next please. And also we identify all the objects, and we ask the visitor there which object is compatible to Borobudur scenic view. Okay, next please. And also we identify the alteration of the Borobudur visual landscape. From the identification, we can see that most of the Borobudur scenic view has been modified. No, has been partially retained, but in the east side and also west side, it's has been modified. So based on this vision, that based on the thing that we can see from the top of Borobudur Temple, we can only see like nearly 10% of the development, but it has been very impacted to the scenic of the Borobudur Temple. But if you can see from the Perpres 58 that the development policy is up to 20%. So is that 20% is compatible with the Borobudur cultural landscape or visual landscape? So it's still questionable. Next, please. And also we identify the shape of the development nearby the Borobudur. Most often they have the geometrical shape that very visible from the top of the temple. Next, please. Next, please. Okay, and also biophysical rating, it's undebatable that the biophysical rating is very strong, but also the development is visible right now in the Borobudur Temple, especially on the east area. Next, please. And also we can identify the color from the picture, so we can do the strategy of camouflage to build the building over there. Next. Next, please. And yeah, this is disaster risk management plan. And from the close discussion with PKB, we identify 7 hazards in Borobudur. Next. So because maybe we used to the earthquake and volcanic eruption is very massive impact to Borobudur Temple, but from the identification, the climate change and human-induced hazard is recorded very high impact to the Borobudur Temple compound, because it happened every day, and the changes of the Borobudur Temple is irreversible. For the earthquake, we can, and also the volcanic eruption, we can clean it and we can rebuild it to the previous condition. But climate change and human-induced hazard is very has irreversible impact to Borobudur Temple. So this kind of hazard we have to focus on Borobudur Temple compound. Next, please. And this is the platform that we create, because to do the management plan, we need to engage a lot of stakeholders. So the platform is very important. So we make this platform as a communication platform for the among the stakeholders. Next. Okay, so this is the Gamelan Metaverse, that the project between university and our university and EC. And yeah, we try to use the metaverse to support the art and music heritage conservation, because of at that time in the pandemic, and we try to elaborate more people to learn about art and music. Next, please. And this is the last. This is our student also, master student. She developed the virtual reality application for promoting educational tourism or wisata minat khusus begitu ya in Pulau Kenanga. So yeah, I think this is at a glance of our baby step. Thank you very much for your attention.
Terima kasih, Mbak Nisa. I think this really showing you the idea of Tridharma perguruan tinggi, research, education, and community services can be combined together in a very effective, efficient way, yeah? Especially with specific commitment on specific object, in this case Borobudur, and how to link the issue of Borobudur to even, as I learned from you, 5 research agenda, right? And that relate also to the strength of the Atmajaya, Department Architecture, Intelligent Architecture, and you show very much to us important one on how to link between the strength of the department to the research agenda and real case of Borobudur, which will be very useful for practice, yeah, especially also Nisa showing that this is not just academic research, but also mostly are also collaborative research between university and also government, in this case institutions who are responsible for conserving Borobudur. Yeah? Very much a good collaboration in Borobudur case, yeah, and can be replicated in other cases. Yeah. Terima kasih Mbak Nisa. Now we move to student presentation, ya Bu Sita. But before joining also online here a group of Bapeda, ya Bu, from Ngawi. I think some of the staff from Ngawi also here, right? You are from Ngawi, right?
No, student that visited Ngawi.
Oh, yeah, student, but Bapeda are joining.
Yes, this one I think.
I see. Okay. Oh, hi. Hello, ibu-ibu, bapak-bapak from Ngawi. Thank you for joining the seminar. Yeah, very soon you will hear the presentation of student who. A week ago, 2 weeks ago, yeah.
2 weeks, 4 weeks ago.
4 weeks ago, visited Ngawi and explore the interesting plot of Vandenbosch. Please, ya. Terima kasih ya, ibu-ibu, teman-teman dari Ngawi ya.
Thank
Silakan,
you.
please.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. How are you? Before we start, I would like to thank you for inviting me to be. It's such a great honor for me to be in this room with very insightful people. So yeah, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Hana Anida, and these are my friends over here. We are from the students of Master of Architecture from Universitas Gadjah Mada Yogyakarta, specifically from the class of History, Theory, and Conservation of Architecture and Urban Design, with our advisors Bu Sita, Bu Dwita, and Pak Ika Putra. So today I'm going to present our field trip 4 weeks ago to Ngawi, and also to introduce to all of you here about Ngawi and about its fortress and the interpretation strategy for its heritage. Next, please. So as you can see on the screen here, maybe you might be wondering right now, where is Ngawi and what is there? What is happening there? So Ngawi is here, over here. So it's on the western part of the East Java province, and it's a small landlocked city, and it's the border of East Java and Central Java province. And this mapping shows several cultural heritage nearby. There are Dieng, Borobudur Temple, Sangiran, Trinil, and Vandenbosch Fort. Next, please. So back then, people used the road of Bengawan Solo as a transportation. This one you can see on the screen, that people back then during the Dutch East Indies era, people used boats to transport, and which is resulted in Eugène de Bois, I hope I pronounced the name correctly, did his expedition about the fossils around the river of Bengawan Solo River. And another route that they do as a transportation is the train. They use trains to transport and also to transport harvest of sugar canes. And in this case, in Ngawi, it has a sugar factory which is called Sudono, Pabrik Gula Sudono. Okay, next. Now we are talking about the timeline of Ngawi. We divide into 4 different eras. So the first one is the prehistory, which is found early man Java, with fossils of Pithecanthropus erectus nearby the river banks of Bengawan Solo River. And the second era is the classical era, in which Ngawi was under the Mataram Kingdom, which is also a part of Yogyakarta Sultanate. And then the third era is Dutch East Indies era, in which there was a war, the Java War, which led by Prince Diponegoro, and about the cultural stelsel policy. And the last one is post-colonialism, or it's the present time. And Ngawi is doing a development and conservation up until now. Next, please. So our field trip 4 weeks ago, it was an amazing experience for us. We met very insightful people from Ngawi, the local government. We met the Babada, or regional planning department of Ngawi. Also, we met the Department of Education and Culture, Department of Tourism, and Department of Public Works and Spatial Planning. And we were greeted very warmly. They are extremely nice to us. We were given the best treatment that they could offer. Yeah. And we were allowed to enter the fortress, and it was a rare chance for people to go there. And not only that, we were also allowed to go upstairs to the rooftop of the fortress to see the beautiful scenery that the building could offer. And so the field trip happened two days. The second day we went to see the city. They guided us to walk around the city to see the heritage, the cultural heritage sites that Ngawi has. Okay, next please. So the first cultural heritage site that we visited is Vandenbosch Fortress. As you can see here on the screen, it was before the revitalization. You can see that it was all rusty, almost wiped by time, almost destroyed. But then there was a revitalization that started in 2020 and finished in 2022. And you can see how beautiful it is now. It looks like this, and it still preserves the original part of the building. But there is one major problem that this fortress has. It still hasn't been used until now. Like, they still have no idea what to do with this massively beautiful fortress. Like, will they turn this building into an old fortress? It used to be like a defensive fortress, or maybe a place to monitor the trade, the river. Like, I don't think so.
For wedding ceremony.
Next, please. So nearby the fortress, there are two sites that we also visited. The first one is Dungus Bridge, or Jembatan Dungus, and Ponglondo, or Kerkhof. So this Kerkhof, it's a Dutch graveyard where back then were used for the Dutch people were buried there. And the second one was Dungus Bridge. It was also used as a monitor or place to monitor or to control the trade route. Okay, next, please. So now we're talking about the river. This is Bengawan Solo River. It has been existed since 4 million years ago. And back then it was used as the main water source for early man Java. And during the Dutch East Indies eras, Eugene Dubois did an expedition using this river as a route. Okay, next. Now we're talking about him. Eugene Dubois in 1891 did an expedition along the Bengawan Solo River from the Vandenbosch Fortress to the west to this area called Trinil. So in this place, he found many fossils about Pithecanthropus erectus, which is the early man of Java. But long before Eugene Dubois did this expedition, many locals had already found these fossils. But there's this interesting myth that they believed. They thought these gigantic bones belonged to some kind of giants. It's called Balung Puto, which literally means giants' bones. So they were afraid that if they take them, they would, some bad things would happen to them. So they still believe in this myth back then. Next, please. Now we're talking about Trinil Museum. So it's one of the cultural heritage that has been nationally acknowledged. And it stores many fossils that were found nearby the Bengawan Solo River. So some of the fossils were found by the locals, like toys and animals and plants, and a replica of early man Java or Pithecanthropus erectus. This place also is the place where Eugene Dubois did an expedition, and he made this monument to show where the location was exactly. Next, please. Now we're moving to the classical era, when Ngawi was under the Mataram Kingdom. So back then, we have a Kepatihan Ngawi. Kepatihan, it's called governor. It's a Pati governor in English. So back then, when after there's a war, Java war led by Prince Diponegoro ended, and it lost. The city of Ngawi was taken back by the Dutch government under the rule of Dutch government, and this place was no longer used until now. But there has been a discussion that this place would be revitalized as a center for cultural and sport activities, but still not going as far as I'm concerned. Okay, next please. Next please. Next. And this is the Patih Pringgokusumo graveyard. So Patih Pringgokusumo was one of the governors that once governed in Ngawi during the classical era, or between 13th to 16th century. And this place was the graveyard of the families and descendants of Patih Pringgokusumo, or the governor. Next, please. Now, this is one interesting cultural heritage site that it interests me personally. So this is Dr. Rajiman Widyodiningrat House, and if you are wondering who this person was, he was the national hero of Indonesia. He was the chairman of PPUPKI. It was an organization that was established for the independence of Indonesia. So I would say that he was one of the founding fathers of the nation. And this, then he had a very prominent role for this nation. And he used to live in a house in a small city in Ngawi. That is very amazing. Like this house, he spent his last days here before he passed away. And next to his house, there's a museum where it's open for public. And if you go there, there's stores of live archives of Dr. Rajiman, alongside with information about his family. This is one of the cultural heritage that also has been acknowledged nationally. Next, please. And the last one that we visited in Ngawi, which is also the natural heritage site that Ngawi has, is Jamus tea plantation. So it is located far down to the south on the eastern slopes of Mount Lawu, and it was very large. It was once discovered by a Dutchman called Van der Ravaart, and yeah, it's a tea plantation, and they also have these products, various tea, and they are also exported to various cities and even abroad. But there's also one major problem about this plantation. So I think people there wanted to get more visitors to come to their plantation. So they built this playground, which is, they painted everything colorful. So can you imagine, like, there's a natural views, but then there's one playgrounds with pink rocks, and I think that's just like destroying the natural heritage itself. Next, please. Okay, so other than trip to Ngawi, we as the students also did a literature review about the intangible heritage of Ngawi. So Ngawi has several heritage, which are tari-tarian, or dance, maybe. And then also traditional ceremonies and wayang kulit. And there's the link to the government of Ngawi, Department of Tourism. So you can visit this link if you want to get to know more information about the intangible heritage of Ngawi. Next, please. So now we've come to the end of the presentation. We've just identified potential heritage of Ngawi, which is also the initial step to determine the strategy of heritage interpretation that Ngawi could adopt for the future, based on the situations and conditions that Ngawi has. So recommendations are required for sustainable conservation and with innovative and creative approaches. But how? How can we do that? How do we do that? We need to collaborate with stakeholders. The government of Ngawi, they can deal with laws, regulations, and also policy making. Meanwhile, on the other hand, we as researchers, we can share our experience about other cities to Ngawi. We can also share our knowledge with them. And the last, communities are also vital in this collaboration. Why? Because communities, they live there. People who live there in Ngawi, people share their everyday lives there. They cannot be separated. They cannot be separated with the city, with the fortress. They are bound together. So it's also vital to include communities in these collaborations. And there's this example of the ongoing research project that the students do. So the initial step for strategy of heritage interpretation, we can do a research-based library. So it's a place where you can go there to get to know more about Ngawi based on research, and it's also to educate people nearby in Ngawi about who they are and what they have. Like they have this very potential city, and once they have this awareness to and sense of belonging that the city is theirs, they can also participate in developing and making this strategy come true. Once again, it's important. Why? Because we're not only talking about humans. We're not only talking about physical buildings. We're talking about humans, about culture, about histories, about stories, and about natural aspects. And it's important because it's not only for us in the present time, but also for the future generations. Thank you.
Tepuk tangan. Terima kasih Dewi, thank you very much, and also student who were able to show to all that today's visit has already collect a lot of information, and this is just the beginning of the semester, right? Program. So good luck for the next step of the program, because this is just the first step. And also thank you for Ngawi again, who already opened their door for students, and hopefully this moment will be a good start for future wider collaboration between Ngawi government, society, and WT UIN, with Atma Jaya, and also with Gajah Mada. Yeah. So now, last but not least, Julia will present the result of the WT UIN fieldwork. Yeah. You can either stand or just sit down here, please.
Okay. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Julia Strasser, and I am tutor at the module Cultural Spaces from the TU Vienna. And I had the honor to support the students at their Borobudur fieldwork. So in the module Cultural Spaces, students are supposed to get in touch with foreign cultures and also learn about them, and especially learn about specifics of other regions. And this year the students focused on Borobudur and had the unique opportunity also to work with students from Indonesia with the Atma Jaya University. And together they were working on different topics. And unfortunately only a few students from Austria could come to Indonesia, so the field trip was also kind of hybrid. So Austrian students back at home were kind of bossed around from the people from the field work, what they should really research on, that we can have very great results and findings. And right now I'm kind of the representative of the students group, and I want to present you the findings of the different groups. Next, please. Yeah, so the first group worked on attributes of architectural value, analysis of structural and symbolic elements of the temple. So one of the first findings were that every structural or decorative object on the temple has a deeper meaning, and it is integrated in the Buddhist culture. So these objects are kind of a showcase of Indian and Javanese art styles. The temple design incorporates complex mathematically and geometrical principles to form a mandala, which are in line with Buddhist and Hindu traditions, and is also visible in many images of the temple. This special craftsmanship made the temple one of the most important cultural and architectural monuments in Southeast Asia. Next, please. In this case, the group worked on today's landscapes and was compared to old-time structures. So in the 8th and 9th century, the area was one of the most important places for the Buddhist worship. At the time, the temple was surrounded by very vast and green fields, and over the time, green fields were replaced by rice fields, feeding a large number of villages, which is until recently the main use of the area surrounding Borobudur. So it was interesting for the students to investigate the different structures that accompanied the rice farming, with the grain houses, mixed use areas around the site. So to get the significant data, they investigated the site, and they used the method of zoning maps and looking for historical photographs and compared it to the current situation. After the mapping, they came to the conclusion that the rice field decreased dramatically, and sadly, This could lead to the loss of income for the local farmers, as well as their traditional cultural landscape structure. Next, please. The other group researched on old and new cultural elements of houses. So in the field work, the group was searching for elements in traditional Javanese houses, and of particular interest were the reliefs on the temple that showed the vernacular architecture from the 8th century, when the temple was actually built. So besides, they were interested in looking for new elements that were added to the houses. So the aim mainly the protection of cultural heritage, so with old fragments, that also to provide still the ability to include new modern elements. The group looked at different settlements around the Borobudur temple and also observed promoted villages for tourists. Important is that these elements need to blend into traditional house design, because after observation it seemed like these new elements of traditional culture looked a little bit made up and not really sincere. So the result of their investigation was a development plan is needed, which include the local inhabitants and research of traditional housing. Next, please. As the previous student group who worked on the landscape around Borobudur mentioned already, many rice fields around the area are existing. So this team worked on the ecological aspect specified on rice fields. The determining factor for the development of the rice field was the existence of the previous ancient lake because of the fertile soil. So the group used mapping, literature study and field data to define which rice field vanished in recent years, and in conclusion the rice fields have been gradually reduced. So in the pictures you can see the rice fields in the year of 2006 and 2023, and the red spots on the right bottom corner are the rice fields who are removed, so who vanished. Next, please. So aesthetic values are also important and are those features of work that contribute to its success and importance as a work of art, and such as the form, content, integrity, harmony, and many, many more. It's important because visual values are the most accessible way where people can appreciate and connect with the historical and cultural significance of the site. The group investigated the many viewpoints from where the Candi Borobudur is visible. Because it is unique, because of its unique silhouette, it is irreplaceable for the authenticity of the Candi. This refers not only to the outer appearance, but also to its material composition and the spatial organization of the structure. Next, please. The students worked on traditional architecture in the vicinity of Borobudur, and they discovered 3 different house types that stamped the villages until today, namely the Joglo type, the Limasan, and the Kampung type. Besides of investigating the special features of each of the house types, the group also interviewed local residents. Consequently, they found that more houses are built according to the Limasan and Kampung roof shape, and Joglo roof types were rare to be found because they are only used for commercial activities. However, a few older houses are still remaining with the Joglo roof type. And by 2023, almost 45% of the population around Borobudur has a house with a Limasan roof, 47% are built with a Kampung roof type, while less than 10% are built with Joglo roof shape. Next, please. In this case, I mainly supported this group, so I was part of this group, and we worked on researching the social value by comparing the scenes on the reliefs on the Borobudur temple with present situation we found in the nearby area. So we were looking for evidence of past activities that are still in practice. For example, here agriculture, hunting birds, rituals, and relationships between parents and child. After conducting some interviews, the group found parallels between the scenes on the reliefs and today's practice. However, with the development of technological era, some aspects developed. For example, buffaloes are still in use for working on fields, but nowadays gradually being replaced by tractors. The result of the observation led to the conclusion that fast activities still exist today, but their existence begins to vanish. And this lady was very nice, and I remember we were also asking her about the relationship between children and parents, and she said like that children always have to obey their parents, so it's like some things never change, right?
You know, the ani-ani, the tools for harvesting, very traditional one.
Yeah, it's very, that's true. Next, please. Some students investigated the imaginary corridor that might span from the Borobudur temple to the Mount Meriapi. By investigating the temples in between and by interviewing some Buddhist monks, they found out that Buddhism came via the Silk Road to Java. The imaginary corridor consists of 3 temples, Candi Medut, Candi Paun, and finally Candi Borobudur. According to the monk and her staff, they were connected by a brick road and a wooden bridge. This opinion is strengthened by recent discoveries of an ancient brick structure near Progo River, which might have been a stop point. And additionally to the 3 main temples, there were also found a 4th temple. But there is no definite evidence. One part of the pilgrim road was restored actually, and with the cooperation of local residents. Next, please. So finally, I would like to thank everybody who gave us the opportunity to visit all these sites and like also to work with Indonesian students. And in the end, I want to say that as a future architect, it's very important and inspiring, because architectural forms are one of the strongest links to our ancestors and should be preserved, because we have to hand them down to the next generation. So thank you very much.
Tepuk tangan untuk Julia. Terima kasih Julia. I think you showing to us really what Renate already mentioned for strategy step. Learn from, be inspired, interpret it, and then innovate for future challenge and opportunity of Borobudur. And that's the last one that we really are looking how to conserve Borobudur in this very dynamic change. Already 11 o'clock. Surprised me, I didn't check the time because was so interesting. Just let you guys to present, but now already 11. But I'm sure that we still have some question discussion for perhaps another 10 or 15 minutes, yeah, before the. Yeah, please, those who are joining online and offline, please share your question, comment of the 7 interesting presenter. Yeah, silakan. Maybe start from the this room first or online. You can just say directly or write in the chat. Sila, please.
Mungkin bisa ditunjukkan di sini yang di Zoom.
Ya, yang di Zoom, Mas. Maybe there's some online. Maybe from Bapedangawi, you may have some comment as this perhaps the first experience in which student went to Ngawi, discuss with you and make some documentation. Please, Ibu Bapak di Ngawi, even if you have no question, but at least a hope or something, harapan for the next collaboration.
Dalam bahasa Indonesia nggak?
In bahasa Indonesia is also okay. Ria, Bu Ria Wikantari, how are you doing? Dari Jakarta.
Makassar.
Makassar, ya.
And there is also Dia from United States.
Dia, oh Dia, how are you doing, Dia? Silakan ini yang di sini. Ya, please silakan.
Dari isi.
Dari isi ya. Ada microphone so that those who are joining online can hear us as well. Ini banyak yang join online.
Yeah,
please.
Okay. Hello everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Ajeng Kusuma. I'm from ISI Yogyakarta, also a student of Magister of Architecture, Gajah Mada. Actually, at the first place, I'd like to say thank you to all of the speakers and also from the architecture students. And my question actually is more general. First, I'm going to ask about are there cultural heritage impact with innovations and regional development? For example, more like promoting the resilience approaches, especially in disaster management, and as a mitigation effort, so that they are in a harmony or synergy between all of that aspect with the concept of preservations. And the second one is actually, is that any special way or how to generate it? Thank you very much.
Sita, maybe you start to answer.
I think, first of all, maybe later on Ibu Nisa also will mention about this one. And in the case of heritage, there is also ICOMOS also having the guidelines for heritage impact assessment. So this is something that right now in Indonesia we started to do assignments on this issue. And for instance, we just also make an assessment for one of the development in Borobudur that categorized as we can say red assessment. So it was then it's supposed to be not to build, not the mitigation. But usually heritage impact assessment is mostly for the mitigation that's supposed to be done. But somehow if it is too much, then it can be destroyed and then it will be then supposed to be postponed, this project. There's something like that. Maybe Mbak Nisa, because she mentioned a lot of things previously, yes, on this issue.
Okay, thank you for the question. It's very unique about the disaster approach that the disaster recovery and approach should be very unique one to another. So I think it is very limited resources about the cultural heritage recovery that has been done in other places for the principle, so to maintain the principle of build back better and not building the same vulnerability. So I think the first step that we try to do is collecting some cases so the site manager can learn from each other. And fortunately in ICOMOS we have iCrops that connected the scientists on the disaster related on cultural heritage, disaster related approach in one group, so we can connect each other. So if you want to learn more about the disaster recovery, disaster management in cultural heritage, you can join ICOMOS. and also join iCrop. And from that, you can learn from each other country, because it's very important for not building the same vulnerability. You know, the first principle of disaster management is not building the same vulnerability. If we can learn from other country, and then we can compose our own recipe in deal with our own cultural heritage, that will be the best, because no one medicine to all the disease, right? So, yeah, I think it is very important to broaden our knowledge and learn from other country, because cultural heritage should, the specific about cultural heritage is we cannot work after the disaster, because it's way too late. But the cultural heritage, we have to pull back all the effort before the disaster to prevent the damage to the disaster, to the cultural heritage, because we cannot return like 1,000 years ago stone with a new one, because it impact the authenticity, and also impact maybe the integrity, that maybe we can lose the statement of the OUV. Okay, I hope it helped. Thank you.
Lisa, in relation to disaster issue, then remind me on your very important finding on Borobudur, that's climate change and human activities are very much provide high impact. Yeah, I think, I don't know, Uli and Renata, whether in other countries already a lot of research to link between climate change and heritage conservation, but can you give me more a bit explanation on how that link climate change and Borobudur, especially in the weather? I mean,
okay, so in Borobudur, we did the calculation to identify the degree of the impact, of the potential impact of each hazard. So we calculate also the frequency of the hazard, and also the impact of the hazard, is it reversible or not. If it's not reversible and it impact directly to the temple, it will be very high. So that's why we indicate the climate change. We know that from the previous research from Bubin, that the climate change has happened around the world. So it also impacted the Borobudur temple, because even though there is no standard about the proper environment condition, about the degree and also the humidity that should be maintained in Borobudur, because there are no such because it's very complicated research. But for the stone conservation, we have some standard. And based on that one, the amplitude, the daily amplitude of the temperature can influence a lot with the conservation of the stone. So we use that standard to evaluate, and we also projecting the climate change for 50 years from now, that it will have like 3 or 5 until 5 degree higher than now. So it will impact a lot to the Borobudur temple. And also human-induced has been, there are a lot of research about the human-induced hazard, because the Borobudur temple itself has the carrying capacity that has been carefully researched previously, and it was recorded in Borobudur Visitor Management Plan. And it showed that they changed the structure of the temple itself, and also the condition of the stone. So those irreversible impact that we cannot afford in Borobudur temple compound, because it cannot be replaced in any way. So that's
So it means also the mass tourism is can become hazard.
Yes, definitely a hazard, that one.
But the climate change issues, especially the changes of the temperature
and humidity,
will be very interesting, in relation to the stone, I mean, conservation. Please, other question, comment, perhaps, online? Well, if not, then, gimana Pusita, I have to close this one, but I may give you, the presenter, 1 minute statement on,
that we can have for our collaboration.
Maybe start from Uli.
Yeah. Thank
Closing
you.
statement, something.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you again for this great opportunity to meet here, to have this ongoing collaboration between our university and also the opportunity to enlarge it in different directions, because we have EC representatives here where we collaborated already in the last year with Atmajaya University. We had also online colleagues from Trisakti University, from Universitas Sumatra Utara is here, so many, and I think that's very a very fruitful base, which hopefully also continues in the future, and especially in Indonesia with this huge diversity, we can learn so much about the from the past for future developments, and here we have to start with the students to raise their awareness about the importance of the cultural heritage and what you can learn, what are the values and what is the wisdom in the cultural heritage, and I hope we can work here together also for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Uli. Renata?
So maybe I can... It's there? Yes, yeah. Okay. So maybe I add something to what Uli already pointed out. I think it's a very important issue that we have the opportunity to work together on a university base. But I think it's also quite important that we had students from Austria working with students from Indonesia. This is very important because this gives the opportunity that the Austrian students learn quite a lot from the Indonesian ones. And on the other hand, from the Indonesian side, students might have learned a little bit a different approach to things, a different way of thinking. And I think this is also something which is so important, why we do this, these study trips, why we are coming here, why we help try to get the students from Indonesia to Austria now, because we want the Indonesian students then work on Austria, and for them it will be quite a different point of view, what to look at, how to look at things than the Austrian ones. So I think this interchange is quite important and reveals yet another dimension of the heritage of a place, and I think this is why we are always doing this kind of things. And I'm very glad that we had the opportunity to work together now with NISA and with the Atmajaya University, so I was very happy, and it worked quite nicely. And also, I said this already, over the continents, that we had students back home and we had the students over here, and now the students, some of your students will be coming to Austria, others will be here, so it will be vice versa then. But I think all the students really, really had a lot to be learned, and it was, I think, a very, very good issue for them. Thank you.
I think one thing that you and the student need to stay here much more longer, not just 2 weeks. Yeah. At least 1 month or even 1 semester, yeah?
But we're happy that at least we managed for 2 weeks.
Okay, yeah. Lisa, you may have
well, but this is with this idea of students staying for longer. We have a couple of students, like Corinna, who is here for a month. There are 2 other students in the moment working in Chanju, or what is it called again? In close to Bandung, where the landslides are. Cianjur, and then they will go to Lombok. And other students will come and work on different topics. So we have really a huge number of students always coming here, and also students from here coming to Austria working on their PhD or master thesis. So I hope we can continue with this also student exchange in the future, and perhaps even set up a double degree program, which is already in kind of discussion, and I hope this will be fruitful in the next years.
Well, I think you are always welcome, students from everywhere in the world, you welcome in Yogyakarta. And I think that another thing that I like to learn from this, that Yogyakarta is actually really a good place for, research and education in cultural heritage, because we have quite a lot of collection from temple, traditional architecture, Saujana, and those, university, and so I mean. Kanki, you may have some last comment or...
Thank you. I'm just moving to Osaka now, so sorry to be outside. And really, thank you very much for the invitation today. And I really share this many information from other presentation at the same time, of course. And yeah, I'm really interested in the other topics, and especially about the disaster management in Japan. It is quite an important discussion because some conservation area is under the expected destruction of the next tsunami in Japan, and it is quite difficult to keep the conservation activities too. So I like to have such a discussion next year or next time. And I really agree to have a more diverse types of the collaboration and stay in the Yogyakarta for a long time. And actually, we have the next generation, and I like to invite you all at the same time. So may hope the more evolutive collaboration and to have a power to conserve. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
Kyoto, can they stay in Kakyuso that you are mentioning?
Yes. Thank you.
Yes, yeah. Lisa, short comment, last comment perhaps.
Okay, so yeah, working with the student always fun because as Renate said that working with student is one way to transferring knowledge and ensuring the progress of cultural heritage conservation is in the right hand. So working with the student is very important to do the right investment in the right way and exploring new method to elaborate more people. Even we try with the student, they do it for the first time in Borobudur, and it was very great result because they have already certain knowledge before about how we evaluate or mapping the cultural heritage attributes. I think it's a good it's a best practice of our collaboration that we need to develop in the future, because learning from each other and also collaboration is the key for not building the same vulnerability. So yeah, thank you.
Terima kasih. And last but not least, Bu Sita, the provocateur of this. Provocateur.
Yes, I'm the provocateur all the time. Yes, back to the issue of working together. Working together can be working with the students. I remember 2000 something that we bring many students to Vienna at that moment, and then we rode a boat and Wachau Valley. And then just before pandemic, I brought 20 students to Kyoto, and then with Kanki Sensei we organized like a field school in Kyoto, Osaka. And before that, we stay in airport of Singapore because we want to visit URA in Singapore, and then the student don't want to stay in the hotel, so we all sleeping in the terminal all night long. That is students' way, but I love it. And secondly, working together with the local governments, like the ones that we worked with Ngawi. I think we taught them. We cannot just, for 2 days, we explore a lot of things. And we can find also their insights, what their hope, and what then we can also try to think to satisfy what the local governments want to do with their heritage. So working together with the local governments, not only in Ngawi, but also I think other places in Indonesia will be very, very important, and we can work together. And then working together, thirdly, with among institutions like UGM, with Atmajaya, with ISI, and others. So this will be very important for us. Let's do more and more. Thank you.
Terima kasih, Bu Sita. I think before we close, I like to make some notes, important 5 to 6 perhaps from this discussion. First, of course, we agree that education is very much important in the context of cultural heritage conservation. Nisa mentioned a good word of investment, yeah, long-term investment. So maybe we are not very satisfied with the practice of heritage conservation in our surrounding, Yogyakarta, but education is something that we still have to continue invest for a longer opportunity and challenge. Yeah. The second is that we learn also from the presenter that in terms of education, the three dharma, the Indonesian concept of three mission of the university, Uli, you know already, education, research, and community services. I could formula in the context of education for heritage. So we learn from Borobudur, Ngawi, and also other cases that combining research, education, and community practices are very much important, not only for students, for academic community, but as well as for local community and also government. The third one, we learned that long-term commitment are important. We learned from Busita, Uli, Nisa, that we have done this one already for more than 2 decades. Seems to be short, but we still, need for much more longer period. So long-term commitment are important in terms of this educational heritage. And then number 4, also we need a new approach. And I learned from Nisa, for example, that artificial intelligence is something that showing that we need some new approach, new innovation to be able to provide something new, something benefit, something solution for the community and for the government. So we need to innovate, to provide a new approach and new innovation for cultural heritage. Lastly, we talk a lot on collaboration, global collaboration, student with teachers, and in special also important the local community. Yeah? We have to collaborate in a wider setting, wider perspective. Maybe I would like to add one more lesson, is that Yogyakarta, and not just the city but the region, seems to be a good, only can be developed as a center of excellence and heritage education. We have UGM, Atmajaya, we have UEE, we have at least 6 to 10.
Oh. As appointed as the head or the chairpersons of the Yogyakarta Cultural Council.
Oh, kaya Dewan Kebudayaan.
A position for us to learn about the nature and culture.
And one thing that I already proposed to the new cultural Dewan Kebudayaan Council of Yogyakarta is that we need to make a recommendation for Yogyakarta is the center of excellence for education and cultural heritage. So hopefully, because our role is to provide recommendation for the king, for the sultan, for the government, hopefully this issue, education for cultural heritage, can be shared to the sultan, and hopefully the government will really implement that in the future. Yogyakarta can be can be developed as center of excellence and heritage education. Terima kasih Ibu Bapak-Bapak, those who are joining online and offline. Thank you very much for your participation. This is already 11:30. I think we have to close the session. Thank you very much, especially also Pusita, Uli, Renata, Nisa, and Kangki. Terima kasih semuanya. Happy weekend, right? And have a nice trip back to Austria, right? Tomorrow, Terima kasih. Tepuk tangan semuanya. Itu di online tuh masih ada banyak tuh teman-teman tuh sebetulnya.
Oh iya, masih banyak.